stylistically there's a tremendous contrast in Eric's playing, because he could play very savagely one minute and then very beautifully the next, so you never quite knew which direction he was going to go.
Eric Clapton's on record as having said he got his hair permed because he thought it might help him play like Hendrix.
I don't want to be Hendrix, I'm already Eric Clapton. That's not a bad thing to be. Oh yes, Eric, that's what you want to be doing. That's it.
That was the major difference, was that he was an English white man sounding like a black American blues guitar player, and really sounding like him, steeped in it. It was incredible.
I can go see him, and on any given night he'll still be able to do that. He'll still be able to pull out all the stops and have all the fire and intensity and all, you know, everything that he had back then. He still has it.
Some of the stuff that he plays is the melody to it and the light and shade. When he'll take it right back and just is. You don't hear a lot of players doing that. So I think he's developed a style and a sound all of his own. I would be able to tell a Clapton solo anywhere, and I think most guitar players, or most people would. He's got the sound perfect, and he's got it, and it's a, I mean, somebody says it's called the woman tone, I don't know, you know, but he's got it, and it's always there, and it's absolutely, it's a gorgeous sound. So it's like a trademark.
This really was authentic. It was by some God-given gift. He wasn't just imitating or mimicking the sound of the blues, which anybody else can do. It's quite, you know, it's not that difficult really. But I mean, we can hear hundreds and hundreds of people playing the blues on the guitar now, so it's not a novelty anymore. But when Eric did it first, back in the 60s, there was some kind of transcendental quality about it. Eric Clapton's formative years really were in the Yardbirds. He'd been in a band before, the Roosters, and Casey Jones and the Engineers, but nobody really saw those groups live. They played in obscure clubs and pubs, and they didn't record. So the first time the public really had a chance to hear Eric, and the first chance he had really to develop his guitar playing, was with the Yardbirds, who were then, in the early 60s, were Britain's premier R&B band, after the Rolling Stones.
You hurry home.
Well, in fact, people used to call it was like the poor man's Stones, if you want. The Stones had gone and they were filling in. And I think that was okay at the time for Clapton. But there was another agenda going on there, because they wanted to get a commercial hit.
Well, there was a single, which was I Wish You Would, the first Yardbird single. And that was built around a very powerful guitar riff, very exciting piece actually. Still sounds great today.
That's when my baby went away. Crying out a people won't do no good. Come back, baby, I wish you would.
Nobody else was playing guitar like that even then. I mean, it was way ahead of what we were used to, maybe the Beatles or the Shadows or any particular guitar band of the day. Nothing sounded as effective and as authentic really as Eric. So that first single was kind of the birth of the Eric Clapton that we grew to know and love.
Coming up baby, give me one more chance. You know I still love you, wanna give you romance.
Even when you go back to those early days, you can hear in his playing an immense amount of control and an immense amount of honing of his playing. You know, he was a real purist, and this is a thing a lot of people don't understand about him, and he still is today. He's very much a purist as a musician.
Well, I think his period in the Yardbirds was more a period when he realised what he didn't want to do, which was he didn't want to be a pop star.
The thing that was not quite right about them was you couldn't work out whether they were an R&B band or a pop band, because the records they put out were so commercial. It was nothing like what you saw live. So I guess, from Eric's point of view, playing in a band like that, it was probably cringe factor at some point.
When the Yardbirds started doing big production numbers, like For Your Love, for example, and bringing in other songwriters and changing the group to become more of a commercial pop group, Eric reacted rather badly to that and quit.
And I think he had a bit of a sabbatical for a while, and then of course the John Mayall thing happened, and that's when it really kicked off, because that's exactly what he wanted.
John was called the father of the British blues, and Eric was very pleased to team up with John Mayall, and of course the combination worked perfectly for both of them.
He gave Eric the opportunity to play lead guitar, to play it in a blues, rhythm and blues context, do what he wanted, explore, even sing the odd lead vocal. Not something Eric took to naturally or desperately wanted to do, but John Mayall was quite certainly responsible for starting to bring that out of him, for starting to make him a singer.
I know John Mayall was very much the boss, but because he rated Eric's playing such a lot, I think Eric was pretty much able to do what he wanted, and you know, Eric's solos were an incredibly important part of that whole package.
There's two tracks on the Bluesbreakers record where he really is the featured musical event, and one is Hideaway and the other one is Steppin' Out. Before Eric Clapton, most guitar solos were either a repeat or a reference to the chorus of the song. Like George Harrison would do that and various others. Or they were just kind of freak-outs. Like Dave Davies does on You Really Got Me, which is intense, but there's not really it's just kind of one level, and there's not a lot of inventiveness going on. It's just, you know, in your face and gone. And when he arrived, you started to get solos that were little pieces of music that were complete in themselves. And they were composed, and they had a beginning, and they had a middle, and they had an end, and they were thought through in terms of setting up the climax. There's a climax to the solo.
Jenny phoned up and said, look, I've been in touch with Eric, and he's in this band called Cream, and they're going to play Kingston Polly, so we can go, you know. So we went down there, and Kingston Polly had this big hall, students' hall, with a stage, and the atmosphere was awful. It was just, there was no lighting, it was just ambient lighting, and there was no lighting on the stage, and it was just Ginger Baker's kit, Jack Bruce's kit, and Eric. And they started playing, and it wasn't even full. It was just like half full, and echoey, and because they were playing the Cream, typical Cream stuff, and it was just incredibly loud. I mean, Eric was so loud, it was unbelievable.
The Cream have 12 enormous loudspeakers, each one loud enough to fill the Albert Hall with sound. Jack Bruce explains why the music is so loud.
In an audience, especially in a small place, smaller than this size, you get an actual physical feeling of the amount of volume that's coming out, and it's exciting.
But doesn't such enormous volume damage the ears and make you deaf?
I've been told by a doctor that there is something in your ear when you're subject to this sort of amount of volume, it switches off. Apparently you're unharmed by it. Hopefully it's true.
I have to admit to the fact that I was a bit scared of the noise, because I was actually feeling very sensitive and vulnerable, because it was after I, as I say, stopped doing all my drugs and alcohol and things, and so I was in a slightly kind of weird state of mind, and it did used to slightly alarm me, the amount of volume that came out of it, you know.
Cream was three guys, you know. There wasn't a lot of us, and that was a pretty great live band, a better live band than a studio band maybe in some ways.
With a three-piece band, you know, which you have to fill those spaces. You fill it with sound, you fill it with playing a little bit busier, you know, you do all sorts of things musically to get the thing happening, and one of the things is using that noise, and they did it great. I mean, and it was a bit scary for me at various times, so I preferred it when they played quieter.
She's some kind of demon that she'll love to. If you don't watch out, it'll stick to you. What kind of fool are you? Strange brew, killing what's inside of you.
Well, Cream were, as a trio, was a place where I think all three musicians were unleashed, in a sense. He was playing off two fantastically busy players. And one thing people have marvelled about in the way Clapton reacted to that is a lot of the time, if you listen very closely, what you're hearing is Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce playing tremendously fast, very complicated, very virtuoso stuff, while Clapton is playing something relatively simple over the top.
I have to say this, that another one of the strong elements was the fact that two of them were jazz musicians and that they were tremendous improvisers. And Jack and Ginger really did kick Eric up the arse in terms of... Eric was a good improviser in a limited area, but very, very strong, very good. And then when they got hold of him, of course they pushed him into stuff that he would never have thought of doing, but he did get there with it.
Suddenly he's in a band with two other virtuosos. You know, you could say that John Mayall was a great blues musician, but he wasn't, you know, there was no one in the band that was at the same level that Eric Clapton was in terms of playing ability. And so you had a situation where, it seems to me, that he was both challenged and set free simultaneously, liberated.
In the middle of Cream, in 1966, just when the band were taking off, suddenly there arrived in London, unexpectedly, another guitar player, a potential rival, who was, of course, Jimi Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix arriving in England was a catalyst for all the guitar players, not just Eric Clapton, Pete Townsend and Jeff Beck. And, you know, all of a sudden, within like a year, Pete Townsend was selling like, you know, a fantastic lead guitar player. But we're not talking about Pete, are we?
There's a Lulu show where Hendrix actually stops playing and starts playing Sunshine of Your Love because he thought they were so fantastic. And they were fantastic. They were an extraordinary band.
We'd like to stop playing this rubbish and dedicate a song to the Cream, regardless of what kind of group they might be in. We'd like to dedicate it to Eric Clapton, Ginger Baker, and Jack Bruce.
Ginger and Eric got on really well, and it was Eric that actually got Jack Bruce into the band because he'd worked with him in a couple of situations. Ginger and Jack didn't want to work together anymore because they'd worked in the Graham Bond organisation band and kept punching each other and falling out. But at Eric's insistence, they actually got Jack into the band.
I never thought about, I mean, I certainly didn't have any big ambitions to be a pop star. That just, the Cream thing just happened completely organically, really. Just by accident almost. And I, you know, obviously I made use of it by writing pop songs.
You're all I want to know.
But I only ever wanted to be a working musician, fortunately, because that's what I am, which is all I ever wanted to be. And so I got what I wanted, as it were. But I certainly didn't think, let me think, sort of early 60s or something, you know, I'm going to conquer the world, you know.
When I heard it, I was lost. You know, I was lost for words, and it took me weeks to recover from hearing this song when I heard the solo and listened to what was really going on. For a start, he plays the entire solo on one string, which is interesting. When you limit yourself that way, then you kind of free yourself in another way. But he's got all the overbends, which is where where you're bending more than just a standard step, 2 notes. You know, most people would be. He's going.
It was Eric who eventually said on an American tour, I've had enough of this, I can't do this anymore, I don't want to do it anymore. But, you know, they decided to actually record this concert. And anything you hear from that concert is them in full flow. The relief, I think, is there as well, you know, it's like they're enjoying themselves.
But sometimes they were guilty of overindulgence if you're allowed to play for 20 minutes just one long solo. Even the best guitarist in the world eventually runs out of ideas and starts repeating them. So there was definitely a need for Eric to move on. Once you've done that, you know, he left that to other guitarists to become guitar heroes. I think he'd had enough of that by that point. I think people were expecting Cream Mark II with even louder solos, more drums and more guitar. And instead, what you got, actually, if you listen to it now, you're really, I think, listening to a Steve Winwood solo album.
Steve Winwood was good, and he was a mate, and you'd like to play with Steve Winwood, wouldn't you, if you could? Yes, you would. And bleeding heck, there's Ginger Baker's in the band again, you know.
Having reached such heights with John Mayall and with Cream, there's nothing on Blind Faith that does the same. There's nothing there that really blows me away.
It doesn't seem to be what he wanted, but he did it. Not very good album, huge tour, loads of money, and then that fell apart too, because I suppose, of course the others would have their own points of view on it, but certainly from Clapton's point of view, he knew it wasn't what he wanted to be doing. Steve Winwood understood that, and one gathers had no bitterness about it, and there it was. Yeah, a strange interlude.
It really was the point where I think Eric decided he had to make a change. He had to get rid of all the baggage from the past and try something completely new.
He was the god of the guitar. still hugely revered. That was the commercial basis for him making a solo album. He was certainly working his way into being a songwriter. I don't think there was any master plan to that. I think that was just the musical movement.
I think it was very much him saying, this is another side of me. It's this very laid-back bluesy side, nearly country. It's not loud guitars, it's very quiet. It's more down-home, southern American country blues.
There is nothing that is wrong, wanting you to stay here with me. Know you got somewhere to go, but don't you make yourself at home and stay with me. Don't you ever leave. Lay down sadly, rest here in my arms. Don't you think you want someone to talk to? Lay down sadly, no need to leave so soon. I've been trying all night long just to talk to you.
There's a sound running through it, but it's not shaped enough. There's not enough light and shade and that kind of thing. Somehow it's fine, but it's not great, and there we are.
It's too late, yeah. My baby's gone. Wish I had told her she was my only one, but it's too late. She's gone.
Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs is a fantastic album. I think it's a great album. It's interesting that for a start he'd been rethinking his approach to the guitar, so instead of Marshall Stacks when he walked in the studio, he was using a pig nose, which is about that big, and a Fender Champ, which is about that big. And Tom Dowd, the producer, is on record as having said that you could sneeze in the room and it would be louder than the noise that they were making.
Eric saw another of these fantastic new guitarists who again filled him with awe but admiration and respect, and he only wanted to play with them, not bring them down, which was Duane Allman, of course. He saw him in Miami.
Duane Allman worked in the Allman Brothers, and they had two guitar players, and he was quite used to working with another guitar player. And I think Eric quite liked the idea of that. In fact, Eric, to this day, live, still works with another guitar player.
He created the famous Layla riff that the song starts on, which I shan't sing, but you know the one. He created it in the usual blues way by nicking it off somebody else and then playing it faster, actually. Apparently it was an Albert King lick.
There's an Albert King song called As the Years Go Passing By, which has got that line in it. There is nothing I can do if you leave me here to cry. It's the whole line. But they just took that bit and sped it up, and there you have it, voila.
Never heard anything like it before. The sound, the melody, the whole weight of the song, the way it flowed, everything about it suddenly seemed to be original. That track is so outstanding. It makes all of the rest of Derek and the Dominos album, which is generally a highly regarded album, but it made the rest of that album seem more like mundane rhythm and blues to me.
But it seemed to Eric to have been a bit of a failure. When that wasn't as big a hit as it should have been, that was the kind of thing that tipped him over the edge.
I mean, after Derek and the Dominos is when he really began the solo career which we know today. And I think something about being a band leader, in my opinion, has not, spurred him on to his best work. In my opinion, he seems to have flourished and done his best work when he was in a situation with equals.
And I wonder, does she know? When she let me in, it hurt me so. I need your love, baby. Please don't make me wait. Tell me it's not too late.
He got off heroin around about 1974, having done a comeback concert in 73, which was very much instigated by his dear pal Pete Townsend, and in 74 he was pretty much operational again. And his comeback album is very fine, I think.
His first big studio album was 461 Ocean Boulevard, recorded in Miami in the early 70s, and this gave Eric the chance to once again restart the process that had begun with the Eric Clapton album.
For the life of a deputy, I say. I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot no deputy. I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot no deputy.
But of course the big hit from the album was a cover of Bob Marley's I Shot the Sheriff, and remarkably, I mean, it was given the competition from Bob Marley himself. It was great that Eric had done something with the song, and it was a complete change of rhythm, change of emphasis, style, a move away from blues and R&B and gospel and rock into some, the fresh dawn of reggae.
And that really put Eric back in the limelight, which career-wise, of course, he needed. He doesn't think he did it decently. He thinks he stank the place out with that performance. He really thinks he can't play reggae, and he's, I suppose, along with the Police, must be the most successful white reggae player there's ever been.
I think it was Eric trying to find his way and express himself, and I think it was a good record, and it started giving him an identity outside of the Cream, and it started a fan base that is with him still today.
Because all the things that Eric had been through, the poor health and the lack of confidence maybe, and various crises, I suppose it's a miracle really at that point. He was drinking too much as well, of course, so it was just great to get him out there recording and making records, but it was a bit of a flop. I don't think it sold terribly well, and that sent alarm bells ringing, I think, within the Clapton camp and probably the record company too.
Well, with one in every crowd, I think it's probably true to say that he was trying to follow up 461 Ocean Boulevard to some extent, using the same sort of material as he'd used there, and I think it's fine. It's all right.
It was a kind of backpedaling sort of an album, really. Well, I don't think Eric's ever been a predictable guitar player. When you go along to see him play live, it's the luck of the draw, really. I think often it's who he's playing with, the circumstances, the mood he's in, what the audience is like. I mean, he may have been playing fantastic concerts in Cleveland, Ohio in 1975. Nobody knows, you weren't there at that time, but people have their memories of when they've seen him. And I've seen Eric playing, say, with other artists like, say, Bob Dylan, or with Elton John, or other sort of superstars, and it never quite works somehow. He steps back too far. I think he plays at his best when he is being pushed by other artists, even if he's not. For example, when Cream got back together again in the year 2005, that was Eric played some of the best guitar I'd heard him play for years and years, and that was because there was that sense of urgency and competition and occasion, a sense of occasion about it.
No Reason to Cry, where he played a bit with Dylan and a bit with the band, and recorded, I believe, in Woodstock, the band's HQ.
Whether it produced great music or whether it was just a jam, I suppose it's really the historic moments, really. I think that's what it is. It's the kind of historic pairings. This is great to see these two together. Whether actually it produced anything that magical at the time is debatable, but I think it was just the excitement of the occasion, really.
The question is always, is he inspired? Is something really heartfelt and uninhibited perhaps happening here? And it certainly didn't appear to be the case on that album.
It's late in the evening.
1977, picked himself up again in his erratic course through the 70s. And so that album as a whole was certainly an upturn and remains quite a favourite, I think, in the Clapton canon, one of his, what would you say, 4 or 5 best albums anyway.
And then she'll ask me, do I look alright? And I'll say yes, you look wonderful tonight.
Wonderful Tonight, which became one of his classic songs, much as, of course, it's seen as sentimental and heartily disliked by some. As he says, behind the rather bleary "you look wonderful tonight," there is also the element, which is quite nice, I think, of him moaning about Patty taking a long time to decide what she's going to wear for the night. So there's a nice little domestic scene there, which is quite edgy if you actually listen to it, which I think probably makes the whole thing work.
Just don't realize how much I love you.
The other style that he plays in is on the song Wonderful Tonight, a love song, and his guitar playing is immensely understated on it. And that's the way that at this particular time he was recording, he wanted to play like. So just for the ear to be able to understand when I play the little solo lead line, what has been going on, I'll play you the chords first of all underneath. The chords underneath are G major, and then it's D with an F sharp root, and then C major to D major. So it goes. So you can see it's immensely understated, and on the record you can barely, you have to listen carefully when he plays that a few times. But this is the very American laid-back style. He started using a Fender Stratocaster and a Fender amplifier, which doesn't overdrive so much. It's a much cleaner sound, and he was tending to use that for quite a long period in the 70s, early 70s.
It's time to go home now, and I've got an aching head. So I'll give her the car keys, and she'll help me to bed. And then I'll tell her, as I turn up the light, I say, my darling, you are wonderful tonight. Oh, my darling, you are wonderful tonight.
But there was a period when Eric's albums, like Another Ticket, which was actually his last for Polydor, weren't making the impact that they had in the past. So I think there was possibly a point where it was becoming a bit of a sausage machine. There was the annual Eric Clapton album, and without any really outstanding tracks or any great excitement being around. So that was really, I think, the end of an era with that particular album.
For Eric, it was also the start of something, because he moved towards getting off alcohol. He entered another whole new phase of his life.
Somebody else came into his life at that point, and that was Phil Collins, Mr. Renaissance Man. He was a brilliant drummer and producer and songwriter, and Phil was, determined to help Eric, I think, find a more commercial route towards, utilising his talents in a fresh way to a new audience.
And I think it really quite worked for him. I think, and he was playing strong again. I remember when they were rehearsing, they were playing Badge. And they did it like the Cream, and it was great, and it really worked, and that live lineup worked extremely well for him for 2 or 3 years. But at that period with Phil Collins, it was quite a stripped down band, but it worked very well.
I asked Clapton, do you think you've ever done anything of beauty? He came up with a really surprising, positive point about that album. He said that the guitar passage to Fade on that, Just Like a Prisoner, he essentially feels that's the best bit of guitar he ever recorded. He said it just flowed, and it flowed on into infinity, and I suppose eventually it gets faded, but he said he felt he could have kept playing forever at that moment. So I think that's a fascinating moment because of what he thinks about it as opposed to what the world thinks about it, which is the world never noticed.
Call your mama about 3 or 4 nights ago. Call your mama about 3 or 4 nights ago. Mama said, son, don't call my girl no more.
I don't really get it. Good judges will say it's very well crafted, very well made, decent songs, good solid performance, etc. And those things may well all be true, but it didn't make a strong impact on me.
Say I'm spending my money on other women. You're taking money from someone else.
I know the word is very important to him. Journeyman. He feels he is a journeyman. It's an interesting attitude to himself and to his work. But in a way, I suppose what I'd say back at it is that is a journeyman album. So I don't feel the sparks flying personally. In the mid-90s, he did one retrospective blues album, From the Cradle. He followed that with Pilgrim, which was his first album of original material since Journeyman. Of course, also his first album of original material since the death of his young son in that appalling fall from a hotel window. He'd written Tears in Heaven about that as a single. He'd covered it on acoustically on Unplugged. So he'd done that musical mourning.
It starts with A major, then E over a G sharp root, then F sharp minor. Then it goes D major to A major to E major. He then goes to F sharp minor, and he goes to a C sharp over an F bass. So you get to E minor to F sharp major to B minor to E11.
I think his albums did improve. I think he certainly came up with some marvellous hits, and of course the bestseller, I think the most interesting innovation was the Unplugged album, when he re-recorded Layla as in a completely different rhythmic fashion, acoustically and with a kind of reggae lilt to it, which transformed the song, made it even better in my opinion. But and of course it was transformed the way Eric was perceived by the public.
The early years of the millennium, he got very busy for one thing. Again, I think he remains inconsistent. He will continue to be re-energized to do what he does best, and that there will be some beautiful music coming from him in the future, live for sure, from time to time on his records. I think he's in a very unusual position for a man of his age, and a good position, I would have thought.
Clapton has been through so many changes in his life, and you can't expect a musician to stand still anyway if you're going to be a creative musician. You have to try new things, you have to experiment. But I think the blues really has always been Eric's forte, and that was the thing that impressed everybody else around the world, including black American guitar players too. But he's brought a lot more to it, and his own personality and interpretation of the blues has convinced others. I mean, if they like him, if B.B. King likes Eric Clapton, then he must be good.
Old hero, great influence on his guitar playing. Again, that's nice to say about Clapton. B.B. King, a great influence. I don't think he sounds anything like B.B. King, but B.B. King is an influence. That's, again, a comment on how Clapton reinterprets his influences. He doesn't copy his influences.
I think he looked at what B.B. King was doing, but compared to what Eric's doing, B.B. King was it's quite simple. And Eric has put a lot more technique, and I don't know, it's just almost taking it a bit further. But then you look at people like Freddie King, and I know Eric was very influenced by Freddie King, and because if you listen to the licks and the playing, and he's taken a lot from Freddie King.
I mean, certainly there's a lot more Freddie King than B.B. King, but what I do know is that that early period, post Yardbirds in John Mayall's band and Cream, he was a revolutionary. He was a pioneer, he was cutting edge, he was dangerous, and he was doing it for the first time. He was out on uncharted territory. I think that's been lost, just how innovative it was at the time, and what a revolutionary thing it was he was doing.
If he was just a patent imitator, then it wouldn't convince anybody. He's a much more rounded player. He's not just a mimic by any means. He is, I think he's a standalone great guitar player.
When he plays, he's got that touch. He's just got that great ability to transmit emotion through his playing. I'm a blues guitar player, is what he says. That's what I do. I'm a blues guitar player, and a very authentic one.